What's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you how I make a custom seat for the Scrambler project. And we're going to go from this to this. Pretty quick and simple. That was dumb. It's not quick and simple. To this. It's a pretty involved process, but I think anyone can tackle it if you just take the time to do the steps. So let's get into the video and we'll go right to it. So in order to get this frame into a seat like this, you first have to make this seat pan that we'll see under here. And the early process to do that is to cover your frame with, I use saran wrap, just any plastic wrap you can get from a store. And then sometimes I'll put like a cardboard, scaffolding in here for the seat pan to sit on. In this particular case, what I did was I put a towel over the top of this, and then I saran wrapped it, and then I put duct tape over it. So the whole point of that was to give me a gap between the frame rail and the seat pan, so that this notch right here would have enough room in the end for this leather to wrap around, connect to the seat pan, and then stick on here nice and smooth like that. So the next phase you'll see is after I've already put duct tape over it, and then we'll go through the process of how the actual fiberglass seat pan is created. Well, as you can see now, the bike is all wrapped and ready for fiberglass. To make the seat pan, basically used some duct tape to kind of go over the surface of it, wrapped the areas that I didn't want fiberglass to get on with saran wrap. Come over here. So what do we have? Well, we got fiberglass mat. I'm gonna try the mat this time. I've used the cloth in the past. Fiberglass resin. So we'll go ahead and start mixing this up. Now I do like to wear a respirator because this stuff's pretty toxic. I know a lot of people don't worry about it. I just don't like the fumes. So you probably won't hear me talking most of the rest of this. Well, you need to find some gloves though. So before we start mixing, I like to cut these up into strips. Makes them easier to work with. So supposedly the mat is a little bit more durable than the cloth is because the fibers a little denser and they kind of go in a bunch of different directions. But I believe it does make a little bit more of a mess, so I guess we shall see how that goes. I'm gonna go check on the bike real quick, see how much of this I actually need. Thinking I'll probably get about 3 per. I'm also going to end up cutting some smaller strips out of one of these too for some of the tighter areas. Looks like I probably did about a half canister last time, so I'm probably gonna do a half again. So for the record, this is definitely my least favorite part of a bike build because I hate fiberglass. But I guess it's a necessary evil. All right, so this next step, I'm adding a base layer of the fiberglass resin that gives the fibers something to stick to. You want to make sure you get in all these little nooks and crannies to make sure you have a space for the fiber to stick. So as you can see now, I'm putting on the first layer of fiber and then I'm putting on a little bit more resin on top of it. You want to make sure it's got a nice coat to it so that your next layer adheres really well to that. This first base layer is really important. You want to make sure, again, that you have good saturation. Otherwise, you're going to get big air pockets and your structural integrity is not going to be nearly as good when the seat is finished. Now, as you can see, I'm starting the next layer. And you don't wait for anything to dry. You just immediately go from one layer to the next layer to the next layer. And you want to try to overlap them so there's no seams that are lining up perfectly. You want to make sure everything's a little offset so that you're constantly having a good structural integrity built underneath, because you certainly don't want to have like a cracked seat pan when you're riding down the road. And once you have all of it laid down, you want to do another final really thick coat of resin to kind of seal it all in. It makes it easier to work on later. And you also want to make sure that you're overlapping quite a bit, because you're going to need to cut back a lot of that material so you can kind of see how the fiber lays well past the frame. And now I'm dumping this last little bit of resin because, again, I like to make a really thick coat. It just makes it easier to work on, really kind of gets rid of all those air bubbles on the top and makes a good working surface. So here we have the dried fiberglass seat. As you can see, I've already cut off one side, and here's one side that's uncut. So what we'll go through and do is we'll take an angle grinder. You can use a cutting blade. You honestly can use just the grinding blade too. It cuts through this stuff pretty quickly. But what I usually do first is draw a line so that I know exactly where I need to cut. So the next phase is I'll put the seat pan back on the bike and do a little bit more fine tuning. So right here I'm going around where the seat butts up against the tank. As you can see, I'm just using a black Sharpie to mark out as best I can exactly where I want this line to be for where the finished seat will go. All right, so here's the finished seat pan. As you can see, I shaped it. I used just a grinder. Don't bother using the cutting wheel. The grinding wheel does just fine. It cuts through this stuff really easily. I just want it to basically get right to the edge of the bar, so you'll be able to see some of the bar when it's wrapped, but not all of it. Because I still want the structure to support, sit on top of it. Still got to figure out how I'm going to latch it, because I'm probably going to either have it go under this, or I might do a hole through the seat covering to where you might just have a bolt right through here. That would then lock it down. That might look weird though, I'm not really sure. So we'll probably wrap it with a very thin layer of foam right over this just to give it a nice shape. Down, flat to the back, a little bump. Yeah, came out pretty good. So we'll be on to upholstery soon. So let's give a little update. Seat pan's done. You can see fits nice in there. What I've decided to do, rather than put a bracket here for it to screw down or a bracket here, I'm going to make, or I should say have made, a pan for underneath here. They'll connect as a bracket kind of like this. So I got this piece, sits in there like that. This will be connected to here. This will lock in, go down here, and then I will take these little pieces, weld them on the back side, not this side, and you'll have screws or bolts, I guess, actually, that will come through here to attach it, so you can just easily bring your socket or whatever right through here. Take it on and off, so it's kind of hidden, but also gives some use to this space. Yeah, I think that'll be real nice. Should hold it on. It'll also add a little extra brace support here in the middle too, which will be nice for the fiberglass. So I just need to weld these now in place. I'm actually, you know what, I think I'm gonna screw them first, or I'm sorry, drill them out first, so that I can mount the plate exactly where I want it. I'll have it connected to this, put it in here, tack weld it, unbolt it, and go from there. So I've got the mounting bracket hooked in. Probably can't see it, but there's some bolt holes on each side through these gaps. This bar that it crosses will then connect to here. Got roughly a center line drawn. So this will lock in, snap down. I'm gonna decide that I'm gonna try to rivet this to it instead of doing a bolt like I was initially gonna do. Because I think it'll hold it a little bit better and have less of an issue with clearances. So we'll give this a try. I'm gonna drill just big enough holes for the rivets. And I'm not gonna go too deep in because I don't want to puncture the air box on accident. That would be bad. So I have my 2 marks now. Come back in here. I just have these in here with some bolts I had lying around. I'll eventually change them over. Do some Allen heads. But flathead works just fine for now. So now you can see here's the bracket pulled apart. Got my 2 guide holes that I will now drill out and then rivet them to the board. Now with the holes drilled, as you can see in both spots, make sure I had to line this up in the proper orientation because it did matter. Make sure this fit through good. So now I just line this up right where it needs to go. Get the rivet gun. Well, hopefully this works. This one's in place. Seems to be all right. Line up the next one. There we go. Awesome. There we go. Let's see if we can go test fit it to the bike. I might have to bore out the mounting holes that are on the bike to get this to line up correctly. Just having that seat pin on there has altered the line alignment just enough. So upon putting my seat pin on, it's just off a little bit. That one's pretty close. The other side's off quite a bit. I'll rasp those out and fix them. I finally got this set up. One of the big mistakes I forgot when setting these up was to have some kind of material underneath for the fabric allowance, which meant I really had to file up this way a lot for these holes for them to work. But as you can see, now it's on there pretty good. I don't even have the latch back here that's eventually gonna hold the back piece down. So the only thing you'll ever have is the front. Might be a little loose, but I'm okay with that. So yeah, I think the mount is good. Just gotta do that back bracket, and then I can move on to foaming and finishing the seat. Starting the foam process on this seat, I started with a block of really high density foam. I always start with this for the bottom because you want something that once you push through the really comfortable foam, you have a really stiff padding so that you don't hit bolts. Granted, there's no bolts on this one, so you don't really have to worry about it as much. But I still like it there as a final firm buffer. I kind of blocked this out so that this hits the back edge. So you can kind of see I notched this out a little bit to fit over this piece. It's just a rough spot right now, but it's pretty good, pretty close. So now I'll come back in with the grinder and start to fine shape this so it sticks good on the back side, because you want that to be a good glue, good bond. Start to smooth this out. Now this will get shaved down pretty far up here because then I'll end up using the softer foam to kind of smooth it all out. And keep in mind too that when you're doing the top layer of the upholstery, a lot of times what you can do is sew a thin layer of foam to the back of it to give those pleats or ridges. I don't know exactly what they're called. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start shaving some of this down with the grinder. We'll see how it goes. Pretty good actually. I might just leave that and start shaving down the outsides, because then once I get the tack in place, I'll just hammer that stuff right to it, and then we'll shape the rest of it. Might actually go ahead and just tack that as it is. These chunks are actually pretty big, so I've seen some people use an electric knife. I have found just using a hacksaw blade goes really smooth through this stuff, as you can see there. You know what, I think so with that being like it is, I'm gonna go ahead and spray tack it to the pan. It'll make it easier to work with. You know what? Let's talk a little bit about the adhesive. I like to use this 3M Super 77 multi-purpose adhesive. This stuff's awesome. The stuff you get at Home Depot that comes in like that big quart can that you have to lay on by hand, that stuff sucks. It does not hold very well. It's a pain in the butt to use. This stuff works way better, way easier, and it holds really well. When putting the spray tack down, you want to make sure you get a nice even coat across both pieces and let them dry for a little bit. This can's pretty old, so you can see I'm getting some splatter. I really don't care. It shouldn't be that big of an issue. But usually takes, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes probably to dry enough to where you can apply it. Maybe not even that long. But yeah, once it's good, we'll just do a quick press down onto these pieces and really make sure you wrench into it. So you'll see when we go around it, I'll first wrench into it, and sometimes I'll even take like a rubber mallet around the corners to really pound it in if I need to. This one I think is going to be much more just thumbs and really wrenching it in. Okay, I actually lied. It doesn't take nearly as long as I said. It takes about a minute or two. So This is where it gets a little tricky. You just want to make sure that you have it as lined up as best as you can. Because once it's on there, it is on there. Now I just go through and work all the different corners where I want to make sure this goes down to. You can see as I'm putting in knuckle prints how it's kind of staying down in certain spots. That's where there's a low spot on the back side of the foam, and it's grabbing and just holding it there. So yeah, now you can see I can take this off and it's not going to come loose. I'll thin this out too. You see how it's kind of peeling away? That's just because of how much extra material is up here. Once I start pulling this away and thinning that out, it'll start to stick even better. But you can see it how well it held this corner right through here, or curve I should say. So yeah, now I can start shaping. Once again, I always wear a respirator and goggles. Believe me, when I've done this the first couple times without it, you start hacking up all kinds of crap after you're done. It's just not worth it. Wear a respirator. That's probably pretty close to being good until I put on the next layer. Actually, you probably need to shave this down a little bit because the next layer needs to be thin. The side profile. So I'm going to add probably about another inch of softer padding on top. Just as a nice comfort layer. So that I'll take it up to about here. And that'll be a nice taper into the top. I want to see that. I want to make sure I didn't go too thin right here. Doesn't look like I did. You can see how big of a hole there is right here though underneath it. So right here's the ridge. And right there's the ledge underneath. Yeah, the plan is to just have a nice gradual run from there to there. I'm going to add another block back here to give another bump up. Other than that, pretty close. So you can kind of see just a little mild bump to the back. It's all tacked on there pretty good. So the next layer we'll just do is the comfort layer. Process for adding the comfort layer is the same as the base layer. You just add some spray tack to both surfaces, make sure you have it lined up good, and then you press it in, making sure to get a really good bond on all of the surfaces. So as you can see here, I'm kind of walking my hands up and down it, really squeezing it and getting it adhered to the surface. After that, I go back through with an electric fillet knife to start trimming off the bulk of the pieces and getting it down to the rough shape that I want. Here you can see I'm doing kind of the top up near the tank. And then once that is done, you go back in to do a little bit more grinding with an angle grinder just to get, again, a nice smooth shape and refine the surface, because you will feel this once the cover is on. So again, just kind of polishing it out. And then I'm moving it back over here on the bike and do one last test fit. And that's pretty much it for the foam part of this. We will tackle doing the cover in the next series. So stay tuned and keep an eye out. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't. Make sure you're up to date with all of it.